The Boston Bruins aren't actively trying to tank, and they've actually been much better than we expected so far this season. The underlying numbers, though, suggest that a downfall is coming, especially without Charlie McAvoy in the lineup.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans? Happy Friday, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. On today's episode, we are looking at the Bruins through about 27% of the regular season, assessing the good and the bad, and trying to determine exactly what this team is. So we'll look at the good stats, we'll take a look at some of the questionable stats, and then we will preview tonight's game against the LA Kings and take a quick look at Sunday's game coming up against the San Jose Sharks. I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. If you want to follow along on social, you can do so at Locked NHL Bruins. That's on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I am your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I have been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years now. I reside in Guelph, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto, and it was announced yesterday that the Guelph Storm will host the 2027 Memorial Cup, so I'm very excited to hopefully be able to cover that next year. So the Bruins so far, let's look at some of the surface numbers for this team that are fairly encouraging. Right now, they're in the midst of a 7-3-0 record over their past 10 games. They have lost 2 in a row, however, and have lost their hold on first place in the Atlantic Division, which I never thought would be a statement that I would utter at any point this season. The Bruins right now, 12-10 record, 24 points through 22 games, the second most points in the Atlantic Division, although tied with Tampa Bay and Ottawa at 24 points and 1 point behind the Detroit Red Wings. They're a point ahead of both the Florida Panthers and Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens in the midst of a 3-4-3 streak here and have fallen from top spot. The Maple Leafs are at 21 points. The Buffalo Sabres at 18 points. So only 7 points separating the first place team from the bottom place team, which you think is pretty tight, but in the Metro, there's only 6 points separating the 8th place New York Rangers from the first place Carolina Hurricanes. The disparity over in the West is much bigger. The Eastern Conference, so tight so far this season. And if you look at point percentage, which is the amount of points earned in relation to total points available so far this season, it gets a bit murkier for the Boston Bruins. We'll look at kind of the negative stats later on. The positive news is they have a winning record, 12 wins, 10 losses. They have a home record of 8-4 and 7-3 over their past 10 games, although they are in the midst of a 2-game losing streak. What is working for this team right now? Well, if you look at goals for, the Bruins are a top 5 team offensively this season in terms of total goals scored. Of course, you always have to look at the per game rate. If you look at goals per game, the Bruins actually fall down to 13th in the NHL because they have played a league high 22 games. And that's, the Oilers have played 23 games. The Rangers, Bruins, Flames, Canucks all have 22 games. So while the Bruins have scored 71 goals, if you put that within the per game rate, it's good for 3.23 goals per game in the NHL which is pretty good considering we had major questions about secondary scoring on this club this season. And we'll look at who's chipping in here in a moment. When it comes to goals allowed per game, the Bruins rank 9th, 3.32. So the 9th most goals allowed per game. So Bruins are allowing more goals than they're scoring. Special teams last season, we know, was a huge weakness. They ranked near or at the bottom in power play and penalty kill very regularly. This season, much improved. 4th ranked power play under assistant coach Steve Spott, who came over from the Dallas Stars. The Bruins have a 27.4% success rate on the power play. Only the Oilers, Stars, and Penguins have better numbers than the Bruins on the power play. On the penalty kill, not as great. They're at around 82%, but still 12th in the NHL in that category. Huge improvement over last year's, falling right to the bottom of the NHL. When it comes to player stats, obviously David Pastrnak remains one of the elite players in the NHL. He's not quite up there with the best of the best so far this season, trailing in scoring by a few points, but there's a bunch of guys who are off to just rocket starts so far this season. Pastrnak has 27 points through 22 games, tied with the likes of Leon Draisaitl, Will Nylander, Jack Eichel, and 9 points behind Nathan MacKinnon, who leads in both points and total goals. Speaking of goals, only MacKinnon has more goals so far this season than Morgan Geekie. He's got 14, tied with Bo Horvat, Leon Draisaitl, and 2 behind Nathan MacKinnon. So just unbelievable production from both David Pastrnak and more so Morgan Geekie to have 14 goals so far this season. He had that great year last year, 33 goals on a seemingly unsustainable shooting percentage, and he's been able to increase his scoring rate so far this season, and he's been just a great find for the Boston Bruins. The secondary scoring has been there, although it's cooled off a bit. Pavel Zacha got off to a roaring start, although he has cooled off a little bit, which is understandable because his 2 line mates are currently injured in Casey Middlestat and Victor Arvidsson, although he does have still 3 assists over his past 5 games. Charlie McAvoy was on pace for a career year in points, despite not even having yet scored a goal this season. He's out for a while. That's obviously going to be a source of concern, both defensively and offensively for this team. Mikey Eyssimont has chipped in 11 points in 22 games. Victor Arvidsson had 10 points in 20 games before he was injured. Mason Lohrei with 10 points, despite being often scratched. And Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, Tanner Jeannot, each with 9 points. Lindholm, Middlestat on the shelf, although there is hope that Lindholm could come back sooner than later. So they are getting, again, more scoring than we anticipated, but the defense has been a bigger problem so far this season. And a final source of encouragement for the Boston Bruins is the play of Jeremy Swayman. He was very good over the last 5 games. He's got save percentages of 909, 909, 909, 929, and 906 over his last 5 games, where he's gone 4-1. Last season, of course, we know he bottomed out at 892, and he's now at 902. So he's raised his save percentage from 892 or 89.2 to 90.2. So 1%. So not a huge jump, but to get over that 900 mark, closer to his career average of 910, is huge for this team, and they're going to need him even more in the upcoming days, weeks, months without Charlie McAvoy. So the good for this team, a winning record, a top 5 power play, they're scoring goals, and they're getting production from David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie. Jeremy Swayman is closer back to his old form than he had been, and they were getting some solid secondary scoring prior to the injuries from Casey Middlestat, Victor Arvidsson, Elias Lindholm. Now, that's the good. The bad, well, we'll take a look at that and some real question marks about this team as the podcast continues. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they are worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, get a better handle on investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Their visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Today, we're looking at the good and the bad from the Bruins' first 22 games. We're over the 25% mark this season with a couple games on tap this weekend. We'll preview those later on in the podcast. I mentioned earlier the Bruins are scoring at a pretty good rate, but they're allowing more goals than they are scoring, which is obviously a problem. When it comes to shots on goal as well, they are recording they're 18th ranked, 27.5 shots per game, but they're allowing 29.8 shots per game, which is 9th most in the NHL. So they're regularly being outscored and outshot on average. And that's just kind of scratching the surface. If you look at some of the underlying numbers, they're not very encouraging with respect to the Boston Bruins. So we're looking at 5-on-5 here. I mentioned the Bruins have a spectacular power play, 4th ranked. They've got a 12th ranked penalty kill. So special teams, one of the big reasons why the Bruins do have a winning record so far this season. Now, when I say they have a winning record, they do have several points that were left on the table, including the other night against the Anaheim Ducks. They have a record of 12-10. If they had been able to get even half of those games to overtime and 5, 6, 7 have been 1-goal losses, then they would be in a much better spot and be firmly in first place in the Atlantic right now, even with other teams having games in hand. But the fact that they've lost those games in regulation is a real blow to their hopes down the road. Right now, let's look at shot attempts. So that's just anytime you have the puck, you've got it, you're trying to get it towards the net. Those are considered shot attempts. The Bruins have allowed about 52% of the total shot attempts when they're playing 5-on-5. And this is over a 1,000-minute sample size at this point. So the other team, this suggests, has the puck more often, and they're getting more pucks towards the net than the Bruins are. Fine, whatever. They're getting more pucks. What does that actually mean? Well, in terms of shots on goal, the Bruins rank, let's see here, 15th in the NHL with a shot differential percentage of basically 50%. They've gotten 459 shots for and allowed 467. So pretty even there, despite the disparity in shot attempts. But that doesn't tell the whole story either, because shots can come from the point, they can come from beside the net, from all over the place. It's the quality of the shots that matter the most. And that's where you look at actual scoring chances and especially high danger chances. The Bruins rank 24th at 5-on-5 in scoring chance differential. They've managed 448 scoring chances, but they've allowed 503. So they've achieved only 47% of the scoring chances in the games that they have played so far at 5-on-5. And it gets even worse when you look at high danger opportunities. And that's kind of, you look at the crease and you draw like a home plate around them. So slot area right in front of the net, high quality chances, breakaways, etc. And the Bruins right now rank 28th in the NHL, generating 165 high danger chances, allowing 211 for a mark of around 43.88%. So all that to say, their expected goals, that's looking at the shot attempts, actual shots, scoring chances, high danger chances. Their expected goals right now is about 40, and they've scored 42. Expected goals against is about 50, and they've allowed 47. So based on the numbers, they've allowed fewer goals than expected, and they have scored more goals than expected. And there's a real chance that those numbers could move closer to what they are expected to be, meaning a greater disparity in terms of goals for and against based on how this team is actually playing. Now, the one saving grace or the one source of encouragement here is looking at their PDO. And PDO is shooting percentage and save percentage at 5-on-5. And it generally squeezes out around 100. And if you look at the teams closest to 100 right now, 100.2 for the Senators and Maple Leafs, they're 16th and 17th. So that's right around the midway point. The Bruins are at 991 with a 915 save percentage and an 89.94 save percentage, which is 22nd in the NHL. So they're getting the scoring, even though their shooting percentage is only 18th. They're not getting as many saves 5-on-5. It's a real argument in my mind to play Jeremy Swayman more than Joonas Korpisalo. That has been the case so far this season. It's a 13-9 split. I would go even heavier in terms of Jeremy Swayman because he's been clearly the better goalie. 902 save percentage compared to 878 for Korpisalo through 9 games. He was making a case last season to get more playing time. It's to the point now where I'd almost rather have Michael DiPietro up here backing up than Korpisalo. He has not been good at all. So that's the bad for this team. They are being out-attempted, outshot, out-chanced. High danger opportunities are more in favor of the opposition. And while Jeremy Swayman has stepped up, he's still only at a 902 save percentage, 878 for Korpisalo, which is very bad. The defense hasn't been as strong as we would like it, even though this team is built on grit, being hard to play against. The loss of Charlie McAvoy. Look, I said yesterday, maybe the tank is on. Not actively, but they just don't have the depth to absorb the loss of a Charlie McAvoy, much less also 3 of your top 6 forwards. As the Bruins stand right now, if they were all healthy, then yeah, you have the makings of a playoff contender at the very least. Right now, with Husnudinov playing 1C, Alex Steeves, Matej Blumel on the second line, Jonathan Aspero, Henry Jokiharju playing regular minutes. It's not looking good, and the numbers already were not in their favor when it comes to what they suggest. So we could have a real bit of a slide here, maybe going back under 500 before the end of this road trip. There's 2 games coming up this weekend, and we'll take a look at them here as the podcast continues. Let's be honest, fellas. Making excuses does not solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. They make it easy to get started. You connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, so no awkward waiting rooms. Your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. It's fast, simple, private, all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonnhl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnhl. Don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONNHL so they know we sent you. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up today, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The Boston Bruins continue their California road trip tonight with a date with the Los Angeles Kings, and that's a 10:30 p.m. Eastern start. Thank goodness it's Friday, gives us more of a fighting chance to stay up for this one. The Kings have a record of 10-6-5 so far this season, and they are coming off an overtime loss, a shootout loss to the San Jose Sharks just last night. So the Bruins should technically be a bit more rested than the Kings. They're led in scoring over their last few games by Quinton Byfield with 5 points. 3 of those are assists, 2 goals from Kevin Fiala. So they don't really have guys who are like on fire right now offensively, but they have a pretty balanced lineup with Adrian Kempe, Quinton Byfield, Kevin Fiala leading the way, Corey Perry with 12 points in 15 games so far this season. They are without Drew Doughty on the blue line, and their goaltending so far similar to the Bruins. Darcy Kemper with a .904 save percentage, Anton Forsberg 888. Should be Swayman in net for the Bruins after Korpisalo got the start the other night. Special teams wise, Kings have a pretty bad power play, 27th ranked. The Bruins, again, 4th. 80% success rate on the penalty kill, which is 15th for the Kings. They're not scoring a ton, 2.76 goals per game, which is 25th, but they're allowing only 2.71 goals per game, which is ranked 7th. Again, hockey's a simple game. Score more than the opposition. The Bruins allowing more than they're scoring. And again, once we look deeper into it, allowing more shots, attempts, scoring chances, high danger chances, etc. So the Kings right now, when it comes to the standings out in the Pacific Division, they rank first in the wild card race over there in the Pacific. 10 wins, 6 losses, 5 overtime losses, a -2 goal differential, 5-3-2 in their last 10, and they're not very good on the road. They're 9-2-3 away, only 1-4-2 at home, so that's an area where the Bruins may be able to exploit tonight. Then on Sunday, the Bruins will be in San Jose, and the San Jose Sharks, like I mentioned, they just beat the Kings last night in a a shootout. And let's just see if they will be playing. Yeah, they'll be playing on Saturday night against the Ottawa Senators, meaning the Bruins. They're benefiting from meeting both the Kings and the Sharks on the second night of a back-to-back, while they are getting a rest between games. So that's something that should be in Boston's favor, where they're getting both of these teams on the second games of back-to-backs, and they will be the more rested team, although not playing within the confines of their home arenas. But still, it should be an advantage for the Bruins. Now, heading into that game against the Ottawa Senators, the San Jose Sharks getting a massive breakout season from Macklin Celebrini, who has 7 points over his past 5 games, and overall leading the Sharks in scoring with 31 points in 21 games, followed by another fantastic young player in Will Smith, who's got 20 points in 21 games. Their special teams, not as good as Boston, 20th on the power play, 18th on the penalty kill. They're scoring only 2.95 goals per game. They're allowing 3.19 goals per game. So both of those are exploitable, right? And their goaltending, Yaroslav Askarov, 908 save percentage, 7-5-1 record. He's been pretty good. All that to say, these will not be easy games for the Boston Bruins. They're road games. They are both decent teams. San Jose, better than expected. They, of course, had the second overall pick last year after finishing near the bottom of the NHL once again. Right now, they're right in the thick of it in terms of the wildcard race in the Western Conference. The Kings holding that second spot with 25 points. Sharks only 2 points behind at 23 with a .548 point percentage, better than Edmonton, better than Vancouver, better than St. Louis, better than Nashville, better than Calgary, and better than the Bruins, who are at .545 heading into tonight's game and Sunday's game. League-wide, goal differential, the Bruins kind of in the middle of the pack, -1 right now. San Jose is -5. The Kings are -2. So technically the Bruins better than those two teams in those areas. They're going to have to take advantage. Can't leave any more points on the table and expect to stay afloat. And that's going to be challenging. Sans Charlie McAvoy. Hopefully Elias Lindholm can come into the lineup. Still no word on Jeffrey Viel and whether he'll be able to play. He suffered that head injury the other night following a fight. If he can't go, with Beecher gone, they got to hope that Lindholm can play tonight unless they recall somebody else from Providence to jump in there and get in the lineup. All right, that is it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Thank you for making it Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We are part of the Locked On family. Very proud to be, and really hope for good things from the Bruins this weekend. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Check out the Locked On NHL Game Night podcast next. All the latest from around the NHL every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can find it on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast app. Please subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins if you have not done so already. Get the coffee flowing tonight so that you can stay up for tonight's game. And we'll be back with another new episode to recap all the latest on the black and gold here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. Your team every single day.